Hi, welcome back to the third part of this tutorial. Today we will see advanced selection, as well as the 3D cursor and snapping. And next, after this, we will also see all the relevant modifiers that we use in Blender. So let's start with advanced selection. I can add a sphere, for instance, a UV sphere. Let me just drop this down so you have better access to the shortcuts. I can go in edit mode. In face mode, I can select edge loops with Alt-click. So if I press Alt-click, it's a bit weird, but if you're close to the edge there, it's going to select vertically. If you select close to the edge there, it's going to select horizontally. You see, you have to imagine every face is divided that way. And so if you press anywhere in this, it's going to go in the direction of the arrow. And if you press anywhere in this, it's going to go in the direction of the arrow. Of course, now it doesn't work because I have triangles in the middle, but yeah. So this is for edge loop selection. With Control Alt and click, I can also select rings. You can press Shift to add to the selection too, that way. This also works with edges. If I press Alt click, you get edge loops. And then you have the Control click. So this is pretty useful. It makes a point-to-point selection. You can open the menu there and tick fill region, and it's gonna allow you to have a square shape inside your sphere, which is pretty useful because this is a pain to do. You'll always get it wrong. So I have my square. If I want to expand the selection, I can press Ctrl and plus. This allows us to grow the selection. If I press Ctrl and minus, I shrink the selection. So this should cover for basic select. No, there's the select linked. So if we press L, it's going to select the entirety of the linked object. By default, it's set to normal. So it's going to propagate the selection to the surface. The same way if you had one point and you press Ctrl plus a lot of time until it covers everything. So if I have a couple of spheres inside the same object, I can press L to add an object to the selection. You can also, if you have a couple vertices selected, press Ctrl L to expand the selection to whatever you need to select. That should cover it for basic selection. You can just Shift and box click to add stuff, or Control to negate the selection that way. Then we have the 3D cursor as well as origin and snapping. So the 3D cursor is this little guy in the center, not the orange one. It's this one. If you Shift right click, it's gonna pop on a surface. It's gonna stick to a surface. It's not gonna follow the surface, but it's gonna just, you know, do a raycast and just hit whatever surface you have underneath your cursor. So this is pretty useful. If I add a new object, you will see that will spawn exactly at the center of my 3D cursor. I can place it wherever I want. The good thing is you can also use it as a temporary pivot point. For instance, I can go there and press 3D cursor, or press the semicolon key, sorry, and just change from median point to 3D cursor. There. So that allows me to rotate around this point or scale around this point, which is very useful. For instance, if you had like a clock and you wanted to put different the different handles all around the clock. For instance, let's say I have a cube that I want there, and I want it all around this clock. for instance. Let's go back to median, make it the right way, like this. And then I can put my 3D cursor at the center of this by going into edit mode and pressing Shift S, cursor to selected. This allows us to snap the cursor to the center of whatever selection I have. So there you have the 3D cursor there. And I can go back to this. Make the 3D cursor the origin, the temporary origin of my operation, and then I can rotate, see, around the center. My origin stays there, but the temporary origin with the 3D cursor allows us to do this operation. So I can, for instance, Alt D, and then rotate Z, and then I can put in the angle, I could put, for instance, you can put math there, 360 divided by 12. So you got 30 degrees. And then if I press Shift R, it's going to repeat the last action. And what was the last action? It was duplicate and rotate by 30 degrees on the Z-axis. So if I press Shift R, it allows us to just put this all over and have something that is akin to radial symmetry. We will see how we do this with a modifier. There's a new modifier in Blender 5.0 that is really useful for this. But this is pretty useful too. So let's learn to move the origin. So how to move the origin, the orange point there, to somewhere else on the mesh. So you can do it with the 3D cursor. You can press L to select this and then Shift S, cursor to selected. It's going to put the 3D cursor at the center. I go back there in object mode, right click, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. And then it's going to move the origin there. It's pretty useful. But you can also right click, set origin, origin to geometry. It's gonna put it at the center of whatever object you have. And then we are going to see the snapping modes. So snapping you can activate by pressing Shift Tab, and it's gonna activate this magnet at the top. By default, it's made for increments. Let's switch this to vertex. Now, if I want to move this vertex, you're going to see it's going to snap to existing vertices. If I want to just copy the height of this point but not move it to the left or the right, I can just press Z to lock it in the Z-axis and then snap while locking on an axis. This is very useful for making sure things are flush and at the same height. To make things flush, you can also do it the dirty way, which is having a selection, disable snapping first, and then scale Z0. This is going to flatten something, and this is going to allow you to have stuff that is at the same height. It's a bit dirty, but it works. You can just scale. Let's go back to median point mode. 3D cursor mode is a bit tricky. And then scale Z0. And then you have a flattened part there. So that is it for snapping. No, you can also snap with rotation. So if I activate snapping and then go into face and then align rotation to target, you see it's going to rotate along the surface. You have to activate, I think it is active there, and then you can have it, yeah, see, it's going to take the center. Of course, it's a bit, yeah, there. This works a bit better. It allows you to, for instance, place bolts or whatever radial stuff you want on a sphere. That is it for snapping the 3D cursor and advanced selection. Next video, we will go to the modifier section where we have the bevel modifier, subdivision surface, mirrors, and all that useful non-destructive stuff. See you there.